President Joe Biden in San Diego right now. He's here talking with the prime ministers of Australia and the UK about the security pact known as AUKUS. Joining us right now to break down exactly what AUKUS is and why it's so important, Dr. Arzan Tarapore, a research scholar at Stanford. First of all, Dr. Tarapore, thank you so much for your time right here on The Four. We do appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
I'm going to jump right in. For folks who are not familiar with the AUKUS partnership, what exactly is this and how long has this been in the works for?
Yeah, sure. So AUKUS was announced with surprise back in September, 18 months ago, September 2021, where the three countries, Australia, the UK and the US, announced that they would be working on a decades-long project to supply Australia with nuclear-powered submarines, but also in what is known as Pillar 2 of AUKUS, to work on defence technology, research and development and fielding of technologies. So it's essentially a plan to build the Australian Navy's capability and also to more closely knit the three countries' defence technology ecosystems.
President Biden made a real point today in his speech, of course, to folks that were there on the base and to the media, to point out the difference between these submarines that we are in partnership with being nuclear-powered submarines, not nuclear-armed submarines. When it comes to Australians, why is that such a point that he needed to point out?
Well, it's a point that he needed to point out partly for the Australian audience, but I think even more so for the regional audience, right? Because among defence analysts, there is a very important and very well-known distinction between submarines that have nuclear propulsion and submarines that have nuclear missiles. What AUKUS is about supplying Australia with nuclear-powered submarines, not nuclear-armed submarines, as President Biden said. Now, this matters for the region because the region is very wary of an intensifying strategic competition between China and the United States and its allies like Australia. And the idea that Australia would acquire nuclear-armed submarines would be seen across the region as a bit more provocative. So it's a very important point to suggest that, in fact, this is not about nuclear weapons, it's just about nuclear-powered submarines.
And let's focus on that here for just a moment. What is the reaction in China to all of this, of course, even leading up to today's big announcement?
Right, so I haven't seen if anything has happened in the last couple of hours, but for the last 18 months, China's line has been to falsely accuse the United States and Australia and the UK of inflaming an arms race in the region, which of course elides the fact that it is China's military modernization and build-up. It is China whose navy is growing at unprecedented rates that is actually setting the pace for military developments in the region. Countries like Australia are simply catching up, arguably belatedly, right? Not even catching up very quickly. But China's line has been that countries like the US and Australia are just being provocative. But to me, that actually signals that there is something that Beijing may be worried about, that this actually adds real capability to the region, and it may hopefully have a deterrent effect in convincing China that aggression is probably not the way forward.
Well, we'll see exactly the reaction from the rest of the world in the days and weeks to come here. Dr. Arzan Tarapore from Stanford, research scholar. We appreciate your time and expertise on the topic. Thank you so much for joining us today here on The Four.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.